So, hello. John Donnelly here
Hello,
from your
John.
Holistic Academy. And my guest today is Charlotte Wickins. How are you doing today, Charlotte?
Hello, John. Lovely to see you smiling away.
Great. And Charlotte, you're over in the south coast of the UK somewhere.
Yes, I'm in a little village called Bosham, which is close to the city of Chichester. We're right in the middle of the south coast, neither east or west, right in the middle, and just above the Isle of Wight. So that's what gives you a definition as to where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
in the
So
UK.
we met recently, Charlotte, and you've a passion and interest in holistic health and wellness, yeah?
All things holistic, John. It's the only way to be, and I think it's the way forward, absolutely. So I just love what you're doing with the
Yeah.
academy.
Excellent. And your background is mostly in coaching work, Charlotte.
Well, I would say I started life as a consultant in business, and had a few ups and downs, a few downs in my life, and discovered
Yeah.
alternative therapies. Um, Became quite passionate about health and well-being. Became trained as a masseuse and shiatsu. Studied kinesiology, which is
Excellent.
amazing tool. Um, but I've also gone back into business and been quite entrepreneurial as well. So I've done a lot of startups for myself, and also set up a wellness centre where we have practitioners and
Excellent.
exercise classes and lovely holistic products and all sorts of things. So really resonate what you're creating here with the Holistic Academy. It's wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah. And I guess from the business point of view, the holistic world and the business world, is there a little bit of a disconnect between the business world and the holistic world, do you think?
You're spot on, John. Yeah, it's so interesting when you've had a corporate background and you've been involved. I've worked in both private and public sectors, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And the challenge is always about personal responsibility and corporate responsibility, and where is that sort of line between, well, we need to look after our, can't say staff anymore, our teams, our people,
Yeah.
and where is it their own responsibility to look after themselves. Yeah, so I think you're incredibly well placed at the moment, because wellness, well-being, as we know with COVID, is becoming top of any business's
Sure.
agenda,
Yeah.
because if we're not well, we can't show up for work.
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
And so the productivity levels in the corporate world, I mean, I guess a good well-being package is obviously essential nowadays, really, isn't it?
I think so. And, we're seeing when we listen to our government and governments around the world, how incredibly lucky we are to be in the West, where there is even a budget for well-being. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting scenario, well-being. We've been on a trajectory, and business as well, following the old GDP, gross
Yeah.
domestic product. And let's face it, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable to keep manufacturing, keep making things, keep taking from our planet. So how do we measure growth? And that's going to be something that's really at the forefront. And I'm actually passionate. So I know that's why you've asked me this question. I'm passionate about how do we make a switch from measuring growth, unsustainable growth, to measuring health.
Yeah.
Because my personal belief is that we need to be focused on a well-being economy. If we're
Yeah.
well, then the planet's well. I do feel there's a direct correlation, John, to the state of the planet and the state of our health.
Yeah.
We are exhausted, the planet's exhausted. There has to be a much better way of operating, and we know there is.
Sure. Yeah. And like, I guess heart-centered leadership would be sort of the area that you would focus on, Charlotte, there yourself, is it?
Yeah. And I know that we share that agreement. We've had this chat. It's really interesting when you come out of the industrial revolution mindset, push, manufacture, demands, business, capitalism, all of the wonderful things, a very sort of ego-based way of driving growth and economy, and you know, how we measure success, and we start to look at actually that's become out of control, uncontrollable, because we've become so focused on volume and quantity that it's unsustainable. How do you then shift all of that awareness and way of being and way of operating in society to one of wellness and well-being, to something that's going to actually slow us down, give us a chance to breathe and to live? You know, are we living to work or working to live? It's a very, very interesting time that we're in at the moment, and I do feel we're transitioning into actually taking much more responsibility for our personal health and well-being, realizing that we can't go on the way we were. But how on earth does business respond to that?
Yeah.
And actually, you know, the government has done an incredibly good job, I believe, in the various health packages and support packages that are out there for business. There's never going to be a one size fits all, and it's a very I shouldn't probably mention it, it's a very contentious, you know, it can be very contentious. But if you look at what they've done with universal credit and some of these forms of payment for self-employed people like myself, where there's been initiatives, they've managed to keep a basic level of income going for a lot of people. And if they can do that, then why can't we do that for everybody? You know, why can't we lift homeless people and give them a step up with some rehabilitation and support and care packages to find a new life, to find their confidence, to you know, give them some hope in life? And why can't we lift a standard of living really around the world? But I am an idealist.
What we would call a dreamer, Charlotte. Yeah.
Yes, I'm the dreamer of my dream. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But we need dreamers, Charlotte. I mean, if you look back throughout history, I mean, the dreamers are the people who changed the world.
Well, it's as Einstein said, you know, you can't save, you can't solve the current problems with the same thinking that caused them. You have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So we've got this amazing generation, you know, millennials down, generation Z and Z and X, Y, who are coming through, and they you know, I was listening to Women's Hour this morning. These amazing 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds who are out there campaigning, wanting to save the planet. One 13-year-old is actively campaigning for more inclusivity for different demographics, just to have access to nature. I mean, she's 13, you know, this is incredible. So you've got this young generation who are saying nothing's fit for purpose. What are you doing about it? Where's the accountability? And when you look at corporate and corporate leadership, you know, do interrupt me if I'm going on. But when you look at the people that are in charge, you do find they're often our generation, older, so they don't really understand the technology. They don't understand the budgets that are needed for the younger generation to really come up with creative solutions. And they're autocratic generally. And you've got this generation that are doing it for themselves, that want autonomy, that want to get into synchronizing with other people, into having a higher energy in the world, into doing good, positive stuff, you know. And so you've got a mismatch in my mind between current leadership and what's coming through is grassroots. And do you know what? Businesses, corporations are beginning to do it for themselves. I read the other day 91% of organizations are now open to hiring coaches. That's a fantastic start.
Brilliant, brilliant, And Charlotte, I read, it reminds me of a book I read recently called Delivering Happiness, and was written by a guy who sold his, it was a shoe company, he sold it to Amazon for billions. But he was obsessed by customer service and obsessed by employee care. And that was the ethos and the culture in the company. And he wrote, the book was called Delivering Happiness. So, I mean, delivering happiness to his customers and delivering happiness to his employees. So it was incredible to know that there is leadership out there who are doing that sort of work. You know?
And I think the question is how. You know, it's always it's very interesting when you want to have change. First of all, you've got to get clear on what the want is, the intention, as we know with any goal that you do. But it's also, you know, how do we get there? And the only way in my mind, and I think you might agree, I'm not sure, is you've got to get really clear and passionate on the why. And when you're really clear and passionate on the why, this is what Simon Sinek talks about.
Yeah.
Get really passionate on your purpose.
Yeah.
And then you attract the right people around you who are going to come up with the creative energy, that get into flow, you know, when our creative minds are open, and we start to then synchronize and the answer unfolds organically.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, that process of getting into that creative flow, Charlotte, I mean, that's where the energy holistic, I think that's where the holistic community can really assist, because the holistic community understand that whole concept of energy and the concept of changing the energy and working from the heart and working from
creating that shift in. And I think this is the question you originally asked me, and I've probably gone around a little bit, but it's how do you make that shift into the heart space? So when we realize that actually our mind is just one part of should be just one part of our rational mind, of our decision making. Yes, we have to adhere to facts. There's loads on the news at the moment about fake news and how it switches everybody off. You look at the US election, but it's how do you realign your beliefs, I suppose, that you can also listen to the irrational side of what's happening with the body. So our bodies will be screaming at us from the gut, no, stop. You know, are we even listening to it? Is our heart opened? You know, as soon as you open up the heart and you get that lovely warmth, that feeling of you know, often starts with gratitude, but that sense of connection, then all of the friction that often's created up here can fall away and you can find much better solutions. So, you know, women, I don't want to be sexist here or create any other divisions, but I do feel the Industrial Revolution we were talking about earlier was very masculine, very male-driven, ego-based. Man is the hunter. Man has gone out and provided, fought battles, incredibly brave and courageous. Women traditionally nurturers, but I do feel now we're shifting into a female paradigm, feminine paradigm at work. And that's about actually, do you know what? I shouldn't have to, you know, wear a suit and have to shout the loudest to be heard around the board table, be my masculine self. I can be feminine. I can have great confidence in actually being vulnerable, in shedding some tears. You know, and bring my real self to work. So I know there's huge work being doing in the coaching world around, you know, enabling females, feminine leadership, one of another word, empathetic leadership, and a lot of, especially through COVID, you know, how do I, if I've been an autocratic leader, how do I embrace my team who are really struggling and they've got loss going on in the family, grief and all sorts of things? How do I develop my compassionate side? Well, it starts with opening up the heart and being vulnerable, and we know that when we do that anyway, individually with our families and friends, everything opens up. So I think there's a big shift going on in the corporate world, and they are looking for leadership and how can I show up, still be professional, but actually be a compassionate and empathetic leader.
Sure. You mentioned the coaching, Charlotte, and it said that the world of coaching has now become like this. I mean, life coaches, I guess, and business coaches. I mean, there's
huge demand. Huge demand. The problem is, okay, not everyone is as qualified or experienced as they would like to be, need to be. How on earth do you choose? And that's where I think the Holistic Academy will come into its own, because I'm anticipating that you will become the benchmark. You know, there's a certain level of experience and qualification and knowledge and wisdom, membership that you know, the corporate world can then say, right, we need a coach, Holistic Academy, that's where we can look to people. So there still has to be a level of leadership, even in personal development, personal growth, the well-being world. And this brings us back to the topic earlier. You know, how do you measure well-being?
Yeah.
It's not easy. There are several alliances out there. There's the Wellbeing Alliance, who are doing a great job. Finland and Scotland and Canada have taken on a sort of a basic income type well-being monetary arrangement.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's the how we were talking about earlier can only really develop, I think, locally and organically. So it's going to take a few years to transition into how we really do measure and value well-being. Is it education? You know, is it depression? Is it fitness? There are so many different spokes to measure. But yeah, I think it's a very exciting time, very exciting time. And if we can work out how to measure well-being and for a corporate to take the responsibility of their team, you know, yes, we can offer healthy food in our canteen, or we can offer more flexible working hours. It's already happening.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's an awareness now that, I mean, even from a point of view of retaining staff, that the health and well-being of our staff is really essential now, because, I mean, young people now, because all this information is at their fingertips now as to how to. So
it is. Why do I want to work for you? Why do I want to work for you, John? When I've got a laptop, I can create something for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to give me job security. Are you going to give me, you know, continual CPD? Yeah. I'm going to develop real expertise, and I'm going to have access to clients I would never have on my own. The future, you know, we've got to realize automation's already here.
Yeah.
The digital revolution has taken off. It's huge. Tech is here. Yeah. It's not going away. We're going to the moon, you know. Yeah. Tesla's up there. So it is really about, okay, we've got to flip the switch. Why do people want to work for us? Yeah. We've got an amazing environment. We do everything we can. And the generations in tech, Google, some of the the corporations that are in the growing industries at the moment, like tech, food, science-based, they have a young generation already on board, and they're already doing amazing things.
Yeah.
So it's really where the systemic change is needed most, for example, in banking, education, the legal world, you know, some of our traditional industries, and our services. That's where the leadership really is, I think, are struggling on how to create this change in leadership so that they can be much more holistic in how what they offer there, and be attractive, because otherwise, you know, who's going to want to work for them? The future is about expertise, because the automation is there and it's going to take away an awful lot of jobs. So the future is well-being and leisure, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, younger people now have huge opportunities, Charlotte, because I mean it's such a mobile economy now, isn't it? And I mean, the idea of just going to a desk and working at a desk every day. I mean, that's almost extinct already. That idea.
It's so interesting, because the coaching I'm doing at the moment is both ends. I work with youngsters in their 20s who are trying to assert themselves in the workplace. I've got a young lady, and she was being promoted, but the salary wasn't going up, and it was just fancy titles. And she had the courage and confidence to actually go in to the board and make them accountable. And she it was about building up the self-belief that she was enough, she was capable, she was doing a great job, And they loved her so much and her initiative that she got an even better promotion, and she's now moved to Amsterdam. And they said, what do you want? Because we want you.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then I work with people at the other end who are, you know, they're not really wanting to move on because their retirement's coming up, the pension's coming up, and they just want to stay where they are. They don't want to get out of their comfort zone, but they're beginning to lose confidence in their leadership. So again, it's just about empowering people on all levels.
Sure, yeah. And I was just reading some of your posts, Charlotte, and you talk a lot about synchronicity and synergy in the workplace. So what do you mean by synergy when it comes to?
Well, it's why I'm here today, John. You know, when we set an intention, there's a certain amount of energy that goes into that intention. I think the saying is, where the intention goes, the energy flows.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we are bombarded with information. We're experiencing so many different things. We're a knowledge society. We're embracing a circular economy, and a lot of change, and things are moving fast. There's a lot of information out there. So it becomes more of a personal responsibility now to really be aware of how you're spending your time and your energy if you're going to keep well. And the whole sort of synergy is around, for me, I try and focus on, okay, what's really important and what can fall away. You know, in the old days, it was a priority list. I think now I actually feel into it. I feel into, okay, you know, is this conversation a great conversation going somewhere? Is it useful? Is it part of, you know, my intention for my work? Or am I just actually being drained and not getting anywhere, and it's not actually useful? So you start to realize where things are synchronizing for you, and where they're not. Sure. And you know, it's very interesting because we're conditioned from an early age into responding and reacting a certain way. We start to have our own thought patterns and beliefs, and they often hinder us, and we become very resistant to doing things in new ways. But when we can realize that that's just how we were brought up and the world has changed, and we can open up our minds, we almost can then start to track new possibilities. And a lot of my work is about being open to possibilities, but also about being kind to yourself. But once you're clear on what it is you want, and for me, that's a lifetime's journey, actually. I've done a lot of different things, and all I know is I'm keen to learn and to serve. And I want to keep doing that. But when you get really clear on a particular goal, like you know, like you, John, with the Holistic Academy, it's such a passion. Your passion radiates out there. We all want to be behind you. You know, this is great work. That's when you start to then lift your energy, and that's what you're going to attract back. It's called the law of attraction. I think most people are familiar with the law of attraction.
Sure, And then gratitude, obviously, Charlotte, gratitude plays a big part in that as well.
Gratitude for me plays the part in opening up the heart. So, you know, there's a reason people said their prayers before bed for hundreds of years. You know, spirituality, it's not a religion, it's a way of being. And we know that religions in the old ways were also a way of controlling people. You know, things were out of balance in lots of ways. But the basics behind, you know, the 10 Commandments and the ways of living, all the religions, it's all a way of being. And when we are grateful, when we realize that actually we're not separate to the world around us, we're part of it. We are actually all connected, all living matter and energy. It's incredibly uplifting and humbling that, you know. So I think hopefully we're coming away from the ego way of looking at the world, the hierarchical way of man at the top, of the food, of the chain, and to being an ecosystem. We're part of the ecosystem, and we have this massive responsibility to look after it. And that starts with ourselves,
Yeah,
and how we look after the environment. But yes, the energy behind it all comes from connecting minds and hearts, and that's, I think, the very nice virtuous circle of what we've been talking about is
yeah,
getting into the corporate hearts and minds, because
sure.
that's where it's our leaders that can make change, but we have a personal responsibility to do that, I believe, for ourselves.
Sure, yeah. And I guess, yeah, Charlotte, that's why the Your Holistic Academy project is so close to my heart, because I find that in the holistic world, the levels of gratitude and appreciation of energies and appreciation of higher levels of energy is so strong in the holistic world. That's where my passion is to champion the holistic practitioners, because they have that passion, they have that energy to make a difference and to be heart-centered and to be have gratitude. And I've learned so much from the holistic practitioners that and so I guess that's the I guess the project is really about bringing that to the business world in a better way, and making a
Yeah.
better connection there between the holistic and the business worlds.
But don't you think it's because it's when we go through our hard times, our deepest pains,
Yeah,
our wounds, to heal them takes it takes a vulnerability. And when you find a healer, somebody else that has been through that process and they've worked out a way of healing themselves, and that's what holistic practitioners are. They've
yeah,
been there. So
yeah,
you're attracting someone that's of a similar energy. They've been there.
yeah,
That humility that comes from having got through something traumatic, usually,
yeah.
it is life changing.
Sure, yeah.
And is that what happened with you, John?
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things, yeah, so stress. I mean, stress in the working world was a huge thing in my life, and I've met so many people since I started this project that have come from the corporate world and had just almost burnout, if you like, and maybe even worse than burnout in some cases, and had sort of moved on to the holistic path, if you like, from the corporate world.
Mm.
I've met so many, so many. So that's a sort
That
of
was
a,
my journey. That was my journey too,
yeah,
as in management consulting, and then again more recently in a public sector, but public facing role.
yeah,
And I had to run an election, and I had no previous experience working with
yeah,
three councils and a budget, and terribly understaffed, and just put my heart and soul and energy into it, and completely burnt out because I didn't put my own personal needs first.
sure,
Um, and when you wake up one day and you literally, the fatigue was so chronic I couldn't get up, and I was so out of alignment
yeah,
with
yeah,
my my own energy, let alone what I was giving out. So, but it takes it. This is what in life. This is why we're here. Probably it's that learning. It's that it takes something. Um, the friction. It takes friction to create innovation. It
yeah,
takes something to disconnect to then find a new way of connecting. And
sure, yeah. And then
amazing.
once you find that connection, Charlotte, then your passion then is just to share it, then, isn't it? Like it's like once you find,
It becomes most people's purpose. At the end of the day, if you feel when we feel we're achieving something greater than ourselves, our own needs, something greater, energetically, it's amazing.
yeah,
Spiritually, it's amazing. We lift on all levels, and it becomes, as you get older anyway, this sort of desire for a legacy in life. Okay, what can I do? I've had this amazing experience. I want to learn all I can about it because I want to share that with people. I can see there's a need. Let's get out there. And the beauty of where we're at today is these shifts in awareness are happening so fast because of this wonderful internet. On
yeah,
some levels it's absolutely draining and exhausting, and on other levels it's inspiring, and it's life-giving work, you know, switching people on to what's possible, new connections, a global economy and global transformation. The responsibility is in using it correctly.
Yeah, sure.
That's a whole nother subject.
Charlotte, we could talk for hours and hours about this, but
Yeah.
so how can people find you, Charlotte? Apart from the Your Holistic Academy, you're up in that you're in that project now with us, and we're delighted to have you on board. But where else can people connect with you, Charlotte? Then?
I do have a website, charlottewickins.com. I have an overarching title of human architect, but I had some feedback that people thought that was almost like redesigning people's lives, and I don't do that. I empower people, enable change, and I've shifted at the moment because of the increase in job loss into career and business support, consultation, coaching, mentoring. So really love getting behind people that want to do it for themselves and want to create the changes in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually find you on LinkedIn, so that's a good place to find you.
Yeah, that's a great place. That's a great place. Yeah, I do post regularly there, more than on Facebook, but I will be starting a Facebook page. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted, Charlotte. I'm absolutely delighted to have this conversation today, and looking forward to working together on the Holistic Academy project. And it's very exciting to have the opportunity to work with yourself and
thank you, John.
Similar mindset. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to just say I've really enjoyed meeting the members on some of the evening chats. Have been great, and I think you've got the most amazing team. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know them and to adding value where I can. So we'll see how that unfolds.
Brilliant, Charlotte. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you very soon. Yeah.
Brilliant. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye, John.
Bye.